Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 with my continuing playthrough of Kaiserreich, the weird and wacky world, as I like to call it. Okay, I was asked, and one of the things is why I wasn't using the heavy armor brigade. Yeah, I don't have control over that. That is a German Kaiser-controlled unit sent over here, so we can't quite coordinate it effectively with our own troops.
Achtung! Befehle! Bereit zum Ausrücken!
So let's continue this.
Angetreten! Ausrücken!
Production is pretty good.
Zuhören! Befehle! Ihre Befehle! Bereit! Ausrücken! Befehle!
How is the air power? Oh, I was also asked or reminded. Okay. Diplomacy. We're at war with Serbia and Romania, and about the idea of sending some submarines out. Well, we can give them to him, I guess. But I don't know that we can come over here. Can we? Can we get through here? No, I don't think we can. Yeah, so sending them out are just really not a useful thing to do. Because they don't have any allies we can get to. Yeah. Okay, well, we can convoy raiding here. Maybe they have convoys coming through here? I don't know. Romania, that is, or something. And for air power, okay, we're green. Oh, we're not green over here. How come we're not green over here? Okay, well, it looks like we have some fighters. Not many. Let's keep our home area well in hand. Oh good, we pushed into here and here.
Befehle? Ihre Befehle? Bereit?
Some of the units rest up a bit. Aza, it's good to have you here. Yeah, okay. I'll take that under advisement very seriously, Azads. Do that first, then see about the other games. I only saw a little bit of the sort of headlines for it, so I have no real good knowledge, but... And maybe it was in Pakistan, but I think it was in India where the police officers shot the rapist suspects. I know, a good way to get your videos demonetized, but if that was India, is there a good read on the fallout from that, Azads? See, I do pay attention to these things once in a while. But as you can tell, not very closely. At least in that case.
Zum Ausrücken. Achtung!
Ah, Julius Ringel wounded. How unfortunate. It looks like we can, and I have not been paying attention to it. Camouflage expert. He already is a mountaineer. Okay, command. We have 100 command, and that's... Okay, we will do that. State where, yeah, I remember you were up there in Assam. I mean, it was like literally 20 plus years ago. I did read up a bunch about Assam, so I'm not, current in any way on it. But so I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you're talking about the law about refugees that are non-Muslims that can come in. Maybe is what you're talking about. Okay, I will try that next time. And so maybe I'm missing something about the current situation on Assam. I'm far from sure on that one either. Because I'm all for good justice on the, rape situation type thing, but justice does sort of properly require a trial to be justice and not revenge. Of course, I know some of my opinions, or maybe most of my opinions, are unpopular with Azads, but I'm something of the belief that India probably would have been a little better broken up a little more. I mean, it was already broken. Well, it ended up in what, 4 parts. You know, you have Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Ceylon, Sri Lanka, whatever you want to call it.
Angetreten.
Is not part of the main one, and I know Azad's is a greater India kind of person, I would say, and that's fine and good. I just, and again in my sort of inexpert outsiders view, think that there's a lot of cultural conflicts. Pagan Bengalis, refugees from Bangladesh will receive citizenship after an expedite. Yes, I was sort of hearing a little bit about that. The entire country, pagans at least, is celebrating this, since we see it as our brothers and sisters being liberated from flesh trade, etc. in the neighboring countries. Yeah, from what I know, and just to explain so that AZ doesn't have to type, and do correct me, AZs, if I'm getting things wrong, and so I'm not trying to, again, explain it to AZs, but explain it to other viewers that will be watching this, because then it will be in the likely hundreds at some point that actually watch this. India is, at its constitutional level, is a secular, supposed to be a secular, non-religious state. Modi, who is particularly controversial in some of the West, and I think controversial in other areas, but people with strong opinions, good or bad, are often controversial, has proposed, or his party has proposed, a law allowing religious refugees from sort of the region, and they list the religions that are acceptable, and the one significant religion on that list that is not acceptable is Islam. Now, is this an anti-Islamicist or whatever belief, or a pro-Hinduist religious movement? Well, here's what I'll say about this. Again from my inexpert, I caught a few news stories briefly about this, but have from previous readings on the subcontinent. I do have some general sort of knowledge on this. Religion is both a belief system in God and how the world's created and that type of stuff, as well as a cultural viewpoint. So you have to look at it in that sense, but you also have to look at it in the sense of, particularly from current India's perspective, you have Kashmir. So you have a lot of you have Kashmir currently what is generally the region of Kashmir expressed occupied by both India and Pakistan. And India is concerned with whether it's in the Pakistani-controlled areas and or in their own areas, that if there was a large influx of Muslims into the region, which Pakistan could orchestrate, and then if they're given citizenship and then voting rights, any sort of plebiscite would push the majorities away from being India. So they're worried about that strategically. And where the particularly the outrage left in America or the West is talking about the Rohingya people that are, I'm sure I'm slightly mispronouncing that are in Burmese territory, that are Muslims, that are being, genocide might not be too strong of a term. They're definitely being attacked heavily. I know there's definitely been mass murders. Some mass murders don't necessarily equate to genocide, but it could be. I'm not trying to say that it is. The Burmese people, I'm not talking Burmese, the citizens of Myanmar or Burma, whatever it's technically called right now, but the Burmese people, the ethnicity, has not been very kind to its minority ethnicities like the Karens and the Kachins and a bunch of others. If I start trying to name, I'll either mess up or do, but these are different mountainous people, including, though I think maybe treated a bit better, ethnic Chinese that are primarily, not maybe entirely, but primarily refugees from communism back when Chiang Kai-shek and the Nationals fell in China. Northern Burma is filled with them. Ethnically cleansing Bengalis and other non-Assamese, so they're protesting against Bengal refugees getting citizenship. Hello, Emperor. Good to see you here. Yes, we're talking about Burma and India and all that. So you have, and so Burma has, treated different groups very badly over the years. So it isn't just in Burma an anti-Muslim bias, though that is a thing. So I know there's a bunch of bunch as in tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, I don't quite know, people that might be described as ethnically Nepalese that had been living in Bhutan, that Bhutan decided to kick out, purge from their country because they're ethnically and culturally different. And there are different ethnicities and cultures within Bhutan, but they're all sort of local to Bhutan and not from other Himalayan peoples. And so they've been purged out, and most of them are sitting down in camps sort of in India. And Nepal doesn't really want them. Of course, up until now, India hasn't accepted them in, and Bhutan doesn't want them, so I don't know if these people would be able to come in under, and they're sort of near the Assam region, come in under the new, yes, basically, yeah, Burma is a Asian Yugoslavia. So you have that situation of with Bhutan, Nepal, and India that might be alleviated by Modi's stuff, but this is all causing conflicts. And I want to, before it scrolls off, quickly read through AZAD's. The best part, which nobody talks about, is census put Assam at only 60% pagan, and Assamese pagan fertility rates are only... Now, when you're saying pagan, are you talking about Hindu, which Hinduism, or are you talking about something else? I'm not quite sure. Around 2 desert devotees so Assamese have a choice between getting annihilated by the Bangladeshi desert devotees or being civil with Bengalis co-religionists. They're choosing the former. Yeah, the border is... Yeah, I totally get that. Also, many of us are multilingual as well. Yeah, I understand. And God, we could do a 10-hour in-depth dive on India and cultures and I don't know if solutions is the right term, but plans, ideas for doing that. So we really can't get into it. Traditionally, the elites in India have often ruled over different ethnicities, often with different religions. So, with the more modern ideas of nationalism, introduced basically by Europeans into basically most of the rest of the world, though we can definitely see nationalistic elements before the arrival of Europe, but sort of in the modern sense. Because you even have a very, very, very big change in India. I'm not sorry, not India, in China, with the nationalists in the early days were very much anti-Westernist revolutionaries, but they were also introducing, this is, Sun Yat-sen and immediate post Sun Yat-sen times. Strong nationalist ethnicity elements into China, stronger than because you often had the Manchus emperors from Manchuria ruling all the rest of China, so they're sort of different ethnic groups where you sort of have the more strong rise of Han nationalism. And again, Emperor knows some of this better than I do, but again, I'm explaining it to the outside world and not to you guys. Running jeeps around, broadcasting all day, which annoy me. Yeah, I understand. We need to keep the game going. So, so you have the situation with all of that, and there isn't an answer. I mean, you can definitely propose one, but not one that's going to satisfy everybody and be peaceful, happy campers for the rest of time. And so whether you can set up, and India is something I do believe of a federal state, so that you can have, if you will, local laws, rulers, governorships. Do it. The Kachins, etc. of Burma were evangelized. Yes, they are very Christian generally. They ethnically cleansed their pagan neighbors and started revolting. Yep, they did that too, but they were also being pushed on them by the Burmese before that. Okay, formation flying. One of the Naga groups is called Nat Soch, Council of Nagaland. The same aspirations. Germans, they're Baptists. Their motto is Nagaland for Christ. Yes, there is definitely religious elements to the Burmese conflict. I will completely acknowledge that. For sure. But from my reading, and again, it can be, I don't want to call it propaganda because I'm not saying it's untrue or suggesting that, but strong viewpoint of one side or the other. Maybe better tanks, I don't know. No. Improved infantry weapons. Burma was pushing on the Karens and Kachins and similar peoples first that really sort of in something of immediate post-colonial world, and they didn't like that, so they started taking up arms, and partially because East-West conflicts vis-a-vis communism and whatnot, they were able to get various Western supporters in their fight against the Burmese central government. So that's all happening. I don't think we can get away from nationalism. I know there's a bunch of people, and obviously Brexit, which just happened, just got massively boosted from the yes. Yeah. And so, I don't think nationalism is anywhere dead. I know the EUists want it to be, but I don't think that is going to be what happens anytime soon. Oh, I got what you were saying. Come on, bring your tigers up to the front and smash them. Smash them. I think there's going to be a big reaction in Europe coming. So I don't think it is toast. I think if current conditions continue to prevail, it will be. But I think there's going to be a big reaction.
Bereit zum Ausrücken.
And I just hope it doesn't get too ugly this time. Yes, you were waiting, IKB. I believe you were quite happy with the
Achtung.
Brexit voting situation.
Bereit. Zuhören.
Outcome.
Bereit zum Ausrücken.
And I have online friends types that were supporting
Bereit.
not so much Corbyn. I don't think I really would call anybody that I know friends that were supporting Corbyn, but I do have people that are generally Remainers. At least the ones that I talk to, and I do sort of count a few of them as friends. I understand their reasons. Russia announces her ambitions. Okay, I don't know that we really care. And you know, they were wanting to have a different outcome, but okay, that's sort of the thing. Yeah, well, Switzerland, you can talk to Lum. I probably wandered away, but he seems to be doing okay and happy with
Angetreten.
Switzerland.
Bereit.
On steroids or not. I do not know, AZs. But I also think population numbers aren't maybe as critical as they used to be. So long as you're willing to enforce your borders. Because of automation is coming. And I'm not one of these people that needs to... well, we have nobody to bomb. I guess I could try to bomb the Serbs, but that doesn't seem overly useful with the naval bombers. Well, you said Western, I thought. Islamic Republic of Iran. Oh, I don't know if you said Western, but praise for church. Yeah. Okay, good. We pushed into there.
Angetreten.
7 cores, push into here. You hit from there, so we're hitting from 2 sides. Okay, we're gonna push to the Bulgarian border, I guess.
Achtung.
Now, Africa seems to be thinking that it needs to move its population out and wanting to colonize both the United States and Europe, but I'm really sort of the opinion that I don't know that they're going to do much about the birth rate, but I really think people are going to go, no.
Zuhören.
Well, don't know if this will be a successful attack, but we'll reinforce it.
Zuhören.
promise. July should be good campaigning season. Yeah, float planes on the Danube. Well, I hear you, but the least... Okay, here's the myth or the sacred goal with China has always been to... This is particularly in America, is if we could just open up the markets in China, there's huge populations to sell to. We just sell to all those people in China. That has been America's open door policy, is what they wanted with China. They did not like sort of what happens here, in which you have foreign control zones. They didn't like that. They didn't like that Germany had its area, its sectors. Britain had its sectors, and the French had its sectors to sell to. They wanted it to be open. Now they definitely wanted to force the Chinese to not put trade barriers up. That was something that they were willing to push on. But they also didn't want to. They wanted it to be the idea that the individual could make the choice, meaning if there's a Chinese-made product, a French-made product, a British-made product, an American-made product, say, all for sale in the store, the individual customer can make the sale. They did not want it like you could only buy, I don't know, cotton cloth, maybe back then, made in places like India, Egypt, and the British Empire, or America. There, which I don't know that there was much cotton, on such huge industrial levels grown in China at the time. Don't really know the cotton industry at all in China, one way or the other. But it's not just the idea of growing it, but manufacturing cloth. America wanted... the market can decide. We just want to be able to compete in it. You don't have to buy it from us. You can buy it from anybody you like, including not buying it from people. But we don't want you to legally force us not to be able to sell it. That's the American ideology that America admittedly is trying to push on the world, as opposed to you must buy it from the British or you must buy it from the French. I don't know if they grew cotton or had cotton cloth, but I definitely know that the Americans and the Brits were competing in that in various parts around the world. The Germans were often doing really nice dye jobs to stuff, high quality dyes back then. So it's sort of how they were competing, getting the cloth and dyeing it well. So yeah, there, definitely has its push, but America has its sort of ideology. Hey, UK for the second time in 80 years had just barely escaped the rule of totalitarian state. The US, ruled by socialist unelected bureaucrats, embodied the worst traits of Soviet Russia, Nazi Germany, unrestricted bankers. You're absolutely right. Do you think China will give you that? You have enough markers in, BRI and RECP. I don't quite get that part of it. Yeah. Danube's big enough for a few gunboats, most assuredly. Yeah, you're right, Van Bishop. I would ask, and I did talk when I lived in Britain long ago. I definitely, asked people, well, what would you think about just becoming part of America? And they were vehemently against it. It was just like, this was, again, back in the 90s. Oh, God, no, that'd be terrible. We'd never want to be part of America, I just sort of, just quizzing, proposing the idea, not like I wanted it to happen, but, sort of a great unification of, like, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Britain all under the American system. It was just like, my God, no way. Well, what the hell do you think you were doing with Europe? Okay, Princely Federation in India are now fighting. Dominion of India are now fighting. Oh, good. More wars. And culturally, America is closer to the British people than the French are, than the Germans are. We're culturally closer, but they did not want to become part. Have a few. Turn England or like North and South England into states, and Wales into states, and Scotland into a state and whatnot. And that was just terrible. But they want to become part of the EU, as a more and more centralized system. I just don't understand that viewpoint, that logic. Did they not understand that that's what they were getting themselves into? And then I have people, recently talking online, oh no, it's not anything like that. Well, that's today, it's not anything like that. But that's what they profess and want to have happen. They want to be the United States of Europe. Now, I would also agree that there is much less, shall we say, popular representation within the EU from, elected people than there is in the United States. Our Congress it's given up its power, but it can take it back at any time that it wants to under our Constitution. It's just more people, Congress wants to turn over the regulating and all that stuff over to bureaucracies and not have to mess with it itself. But that's a different issue. So yeah, you can be good neighbors, even friends, without being forced to move in together. Absolutely, Van Bishop. And this is what we were talking about before. If you have relatively defined, don't have to necessarily be defendable, but relatively defined and relatively agreed upon fences. An old American thing is good fences make good neighbors. In the Northeast, there's a lot of sort of housing areas that don't have defined fences between, what in American we call the backyard between each other. It's just there is definitely property lines, but they're not necessarily visible on the ground, and that can cause conflict. Who's mowing whose yard? Whose dog is pooping where? Good fences make good neighbors, and so just as more in not so much as a defendable fence, but just as a defining demarcation. Oh, Belt and Road plus. I think people are rejecting Belt and Road, just to put that shortly so I don't get too bogged down into it. I think a lot of the countries' leaders that they got into the early stages of Belt and Road are starting to reject what's going on, and I'm starting to see a little bit of that, and just a little bit of it in Italy. So, seeing some of that. And today's Merkel's and Macron's and whatever may not be, and I don't think they are, anything like the Nazis and their goals and desires and what they want to do. But given time, what's to say the next replacement leaders won't have similar goals? Oh, to save the planet! Whatever that means. We can nuke the entire face of the planet, and the planet will still go spinning through space without any noticeable change. So, save the planet is a nebulous term that can be elastically mean just about anything you want it to. So that's not very useful. Just the save the planet term. Absolutely, Van Bishop. And see, this is what I've been seeing, because I do follow a lot of, including like watch more Sky News than BBC News on YouTube and things. But I do follow a bunch of what goes on in Britain fairly closely. And a lot of the leftists are saying, racist Britain. I just can't imagine how Britain's so racist. It's not. Most of the people that vote for Brexit or voted recently for Boris Johnson are not racist. And then they often say, well, and there's like, I guess it was the Polish cook or something, or whatever that helped with the narwhal tusk. And, you know, well, is he the good immigrant where the others aren't? No. The point is not whether a particular immigrant is good or not. I have not chosen to live in Poland. Okay? I have not chosen to live in Poland. And I don't want Poland, so I have not moved to Poland. Okay? I don't live in Poland. I live in a very multicultural, I live in LA County currently. Okay? And so I live in a multicultural world that has an Anglo, overculture. But it's very, very multicultural through all my life. So I am not someone who is accustomed to living in a single culture society. This is what Europeans, because I did live in Britain for a while, and traveled around. This is what Europeans are used to, is living within a single cultural society. Now maybe another part of their country, you know, there's Highland and Lowland Scotland, but there's also the sort of, well, Glasgow and Edinburgh are very different from each other, but there's sort of that sort of belt there. But then you have the border regions, and you have the northeast, different regions of Scotland that have different sort of subcultures. And we're just talking in Scotland, and there's only about 5 million people in Scotland last I knew. And so but within their village, within their city, within their whatever, it's all of one culture for the most part. Okay, so they're used to that. That's what they're used to. Culture. I'm not talking about anybody's skin color or hair color. I'm talking about culture. They're used to that. And where I'm not. And so I was able to observe it as a person, as an outsider when living there, which is very helpful to understanding it better. Because to them it's just the way things are. So a Polish person moving to Britain is not a problem. It's not a problem at all. And so if you're a British person and go say, well, I don't want to go live in Poland, but also I don't want Poland to come to live in my town. So once you say, I don't know, get over 5% of a different ethnicity, and if your main ethnicity is less than, I don't know, 70%, you're now starting to live in a different world. You've imported another culture. And on the Isle of Skye, I know there's a bridge there now, but in the days when I was there was no bridge. Not when I lived there, but afterwards, somebody who was from the Isle of Skye I met here in LA and talked to him. There is a family of, I think, Pakistanis that had moved to the Isle of Skye way back, like in the 1960s or something like that. And I forget exactly, they were sort of like, did some sort of traveling sale around here, and they became very much part of the culture of the Isle of Skye. Sorry, I haven't been reading the comments here, but one of Gamer's sort of rants. But they were very much taken into the hearts of the people of the Isle of Skye, very much appreciated. There was not any significant anti-foreign bias or anything with these people. They were welcomed. The people, this Middle East or South Asian, I think they were Pakistani, family that lived there, and they made a niche for themselves within the population of the Isle of Skye. And that's fine and great and wonderful. And not a problem in the world, because it is a family. There wasn't an equal number of Pakistanis, and I know that's sort of controversial to use that term in Britain, but it doesn't matter whether Pakistanis or Martians. I don't care. It could be a bunch of Londoners for all I care. And for a lot of, if a equal number of Londoners all moved into like a new housing development on the Isle of Skye, the people of Skye would be like, hey, this is our home. We didn't want to live in London. We didn't want your London ways up here. We had our own ways. We had our own ways of doing things. It's a rejection of not us It's not a racist thing that a lot of people want to call it. It's not about that. It's about large populations, not a few individuals, because you can all have your good friends who, the Polish immigrant or the Russian immigrant in Britain who's a good person, and I'm not saying they're not good people, but a few of them trickling in can be good and healthy because they can contribute to society and also show different ways to the locals, whether the locals want to adopt them or not, and they get to choose. But once you get flooded in with a group of people, and again, this is not race, this is culture, flooded in by a group of different people, cultures, it changes things, and the locals should have a say on it. So that is what I think and my read on what Britain has done about Brexit. It is showed most glaringly non-European cultures that have been flooding in large numbers recently, often, not always, but often through Europe. But it's also about, and it's not like the professional class necessarily of Europe sort of moving around, for a few years living in London, a few years living in Berlin, and, sort of migrating around. It's about large sort of, populations moving in that are different and are not them and have not become assimilated to Britishness. That is my understanding of what and why not. And you can talk about the bureaucracies and unelected elements of the EU. That's all part of it too. But I think at the core of it is, no, we're British. We're not European. We don't want to be forced to have these large groups of people in. And our man was following the Polish tradition of charging the enemy with the longest weapon available. Long live the winged hussars. Very good, IKP. And so, so that's how I read it. And I know I'm talking to Brits. I know I'm talking to people about their own countries. But it's my observations. Yes, we want 6 military factories 70 days away about their country. But that is me as I did go to university that wasn't my major, but I did take a lot of sociology classes, so I've been trained to study it, and it's how I studied and viewed when living there. So it comes from somebody who knows how to do that kind of thing. Okay, we are here, and 6 divisions push there now before they can get across that river and reinforce effectively, hopefully. And you 2 divisions support the attack. I just don't want to lose that province as we push deeper. As most villagers should now do. Well, I don't know how much today is for personal gain on South Africa will declare for politicians, but I think a lot of them work for their own ideologies, and that can be said on the right and on the left. They have their viewpoints, and they're pushing for their second African Civil War. Very good. Okay. They're having their fun. And so they're pushing for their ideologies. And it's one thing if it's the old, not necessarily the modern woke Lib Dems. Because I knew people who voted Lib Dem back in the 90s, and they were just sort of like a little more free market, little less traditional Toryism, definitely not wanting to go socialist of labor. I think today's woke Lib Dems are they're a hijacked party. I think the SNP is a hijacked party. They're no longer the Scottish National Party. They are another sort of, they become a woke Europeanist party that is anti-London, not so much anti-Britain, but anti-London rule. And so I think they betrayed their well, the leadership has been hijacked into this stuff. But when you have such diametrically opposed groups as radical labor, not, we can talk about Tony Blair's and some of his problems, labor, but radical Corbynist Labour versus Boris Johnson's Tories, you have big divides that cause conflict. Okay, working towards securing our own power, wealth, and social status is often what they turn into. Our low labor light. Yeah, well, I don't, and I've never read the current, for this last election cycle, Lib Dem manifesto, just what I'm getting from people talking about it. I don't know if they were as Marxist. I mean, they may be or as socialist as that, but they're definitely woke, which is a different thing. Yeah, that's the problem with the big problem is the bureaucracies. But still you have certain national governments, Germany, that have huge amounts of input and influence in the EU. Okay, we're going to speed this up. Because we're just slowly grinding our way into this. Attack again. They're getting ready to move you. Troops out, so we'll pin them there. I'm just trying to get to here and cut them off. Yep, just like that. Push down on these guys. You support that push without actually attempting to occupy that province. Oh good. More factories available to build more things. And we'll go there, and now I think, well, we now have a tactical bomber here. Yeah, let's update this. Yes. Okay. I think the big... okay, well, we need steel and aluminum big time. So let's see who we can get. Steel from Hungary. 16 for one factory, very good. Aluminum. Let's see if Illyria will do better. 80 for one factory, okay. So now we have that, which of course is reducing this down. Actually we're going to cancel that and we're going to do another civilian factory because we'll be getting 6 more very soon, in military factories in, well, 40 some days. Okay, artillery and rifles. I think we're consuming a fair amount of those, and I guess also support equipment we will do. That of your own, yeah. Soros is the sky, baby. He wants to be the evil ruler of the world. Why am I not surprised?
Zuhören.
Well, if we can hold here, we just, I think, cut everything off. Well, it sort of looks like we can hold.
Angetreten.
Support that attack, maybe. Oh, well, that
Ihre
didn't get...
Befehle. Zuhören. Ihre Befehle.
Okay, we're gonna, not the stream, but we're gonna end the episode now. I want to thank you for watching. Thanks for liking. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And of course, I love hearing from you, so please post questions, comments, suggestions. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.